exciting episode of the NVP Show. I'm your host, Neil Villapiano, and we got a lot of things to talk about today in the wide world of sports. So without further ado, let's get right down to it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is obviously the World Series. The Chicago Cubs came back from down 3-1 against the Cleveland Indians to finally break the so-called curse of the Billy Goat. 108 years without winning a World Series. The curse is finally broken, and now all Cubs fans can relax and finally say out loud that the Chicago Cubs are World Series champions. Now, if you remember, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I was talking to you guys about my feelings towards the Chicago Cubs and why I'm not the world's biggest fan of them, let's put it in those terms. I wasn't really rooting for them in the World Series because, like I said, they had been favored all year to win it. But now that I've taken some time to really go over and look at just what they've accomplished this year and everything, I think it's great that they finally had some sort of adversity going, in this World Series being down 3-1. I definitely didn't believe the Cubs would win the World Series when they went down 3-1. I thought, yeah, they'll probably win Game 5 and then they'll lose in Game 6 and that'll be the end of it. But once the Cubs got off to a 3-0 lead in the top of the first in Game 6, I said, darn it, the Cubs are going to win it all. Because I just knew that at that point the Cubs got all the momentum. But let me guys tell you, if you guys were watching that Game 7, that was pretty crazy. You remember at one point the Cubs were up 5-1 and I believe in the 5th inning, and I said, looks like the Cubs are going to hold on. But the Indians fought back, tied the game on that home run by Rajai Davis. The whole place went crazy. And, it was just crazy. And to top it all off, we also had a 10-minute rain delay. Of course, I wanted snow, but sometimes Mother Nature doesn't work in your favor. But no, it was a 10-minute rain delay. I thought that was even better. I was like, wow, now we got to wait around to wait for extra innings. But the Cubs, they came up in the top of the 10th. They were fighting. They got 2 runs in to take a 8-6 lead. And Ben Zobrist, who, in my opinion, was the most consistent player on the Cubs. Every game of this World Series, even the ones they lost, Zobrist was making plays at the plate and delivering. And he came through that clutch opposite field double that scored the go-ahead run. Miguel Montero came up as a pinch hitter and drove in the other run to make it 8-6. And, Ben Zobrist won the World Series MVP. I think it's great because, if you go back to when Zobrist first came into the league, came up with the Tampa Bay Rays, and who was his manager? Joe Maddon. And he was pretty good, a switch hitter, and he was he was very talented. Then he gets shipped around to a few other teams, and he ends up on Kansas City last year and wins the World Series. Now he comes in after signing a deal with the Cubs in his first year, and who's his manager? Joe Maddon. And he comes in, and he's been really consistent all year, very clutch in the World Series, and now he's the World Series MVP, and he helps win, for him personally, his second World Series ring, and for Chicago, its first ring in 108 years. I mean, honestly, I was really happy that it went 7 because I was talking to somebody about this a few days ago when the series was still 3-1 in favor of the Indians. I said, boy, this has been a really boring World Series. It's been kind of a disappointment because I think fans thought at this point the series would be tied at 2 games apiece. It would be a lot more high intense, but it wasn't. But, thank the Cubs, for all you baseball fans out there, thank the Cubs for coming back and winning it all and making this a series because it was starting to look pretty bad for the Cubs. I want to talk a little bit about the general manager of the Chicago Cubs, Theo Epstein, who originally was the general manager of the Boston Red Sox. And Theo Epstein, in my opinion, will go down as possibly the greatest general manager in the history of sports. And there's a really good case for that because of this reason. He helped break the 86-year curse of the Boston Red Sox. He broke that, building a team, and they broke the 86-year curse. And then he comes in and breaks the even longer curse, the 108-year curse of the Chicago Cubs. And I was talking to a few people, and I was jokingly saying, what's next? In a few years, he's going to go to Cleveland and, break that curse as well? I mean, this is the man of breaking curses at this point. But Theo Epstein has made a huge statement about possibly being one of the best GMs ever in sports because he really has done a tremendous job. And obviously, and it's not shocking, if you look, there's several former Red Sox players on the Cubs right now. John Lester, John Lackey. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, and I could see him clearly off the top of my head, but it's blocking out of my Right, not Cody Ross. David Ross. That's another one. Those are several guys right there, and look, and he also just got a combination of a bunch of guys, and even Anthony Rizzo, now I just mentioned, he was in the Red Sox farm system, so Theo Epstein got him, and that certainly has paid off. But yeah, Theo Epstein realizes that he sees talent when he sees it. I mean, he drafted Kyle Schwarber when most people thought that he was vastly overrated and not that good. But Kyle Schwarber came up with several big hits in order to help the Cubs win the World Series. So my hat's off to him and the entire Cubs organization. But I do also want to give a shout out to the Cleveland Indians. They were definitely not expected to make it to the World Series this year. And certainly I don't think they were projected to beat the Red Sox the way they did in the ALDS, and they swept them. And then they came out and easily, in my opinion, handled the Toronto Blue Jays in the ALCS. And you got to give a lot of credit to those guys. I mean, Terry Francona, he's had so much success in the World Series. He came into the World Series 8-0. Obviously, he got through more World Series now as 11-4 in the World Series in his career. So, but still, you got to give him a lot of credit for the job he did. And what was impressive, you have to be amazed by this bullpen that the Indians had. Virtually unhittable. Andrew Miller was pitching out of his mind. Kluber on the starting rotation pitched very well. Obviously in Game 7, maybe they used him a little too much. Because I think that, that was the third start he had in 9 days. And I'm thinking to myself, it only takes a certain amount of time before hitters start to realize, what the weaknesses are of some of these players. And that's just basically it. That's what you have to realize, is that once you put in a guy several times, that's what you're going to result in. And that's one of the things that I gave Joe Madden, the manager of the Cubs, a lot of credit for, because he didn't overuse his starters. Yes, did he use Lester in Game 7 unwisely? Yeah. He also used Aroldis Chapman unwisely in Game 7. But for the most part, he really did a good job of getting his starters a good amount of rest for them to go out and pitch. And he did a great job of that throughout the whole series, and I think that's one of the key reasons that the Cubs were really able to come back from down 3-1. And I was just talking to Mark from Morning Coffee a few days ago, and I agree with the statement that if any team was going to come back from down 3-1, it was definitely the Chicago Cubs. Because if you look at the amount of talent they have on that team, why wouldn't you think that? I think their biggest problem in the early going, especially through the first 4 games, they were trying to do way too much. They were trying to hit home runs after home runs and not trying to do the simple things. Just get a couple base hits, bunt, make all the simple plays, get some, small ball, get some runs in and get it going. I think probably what happened was that the Cubs had a meeting before Game 5 and they were just like, let's just keep it simple. And that's all they did. And, and I give them a lot of credit for being able to realize their mistakes and being able to correct them and have success and go on to win this whole thing. And, it was crazy, and I just want to talk about the fact that when that ground ball that Chris Bryant picked up to record the last out of the World Series, and all of a sudden you just see the whole, Cubs team on the field going nuts, it still hasn't, to be honest with you, it still in a way hasn't hit me because I don't really know what it is, to be honest with you. I don't know why. It just hasn't hit me that much yet that the Chicago Cubs are World Series champions. It's kind of interesting. I was just doing a radio show 2 days ago, and we were playing the theme song "Go Cubs Go," and I actually just did a bet with a friend of mine, and I lost the bet, so now I have to have the "Go Cubs Go" ringtone on my phone for a whole week. So anybody who's going to call me is going to hear "Go Cubs Go." So I'm pretty sure now a lot of people will do that just so they can hear the ringtone. But but I'm just so happy that this World Series went 7, and Game 7 was just incredible. It was back and forth. It was exciting. This is what Game 7 was. This might have been the most intriguing and most entertaining World Series I've seen. I thought 2 years ago between the Royals and the Giants, when it came down to the tying run, 90 feet away, Giants went out away from winning the World Series, Salvador Perez pops up, and Pablo Sandoval makes the catch, and the Giants win the World Series. I thought that was really exciting, but now I think this World Series tops it, and I think that the Cubs are just getting started, in my opinion. I think that they're going to be competitive for a good amount of years. You look at the age of some of the guys. Dexter Fowler's not that old. Chris Bryant's just starting. Anthony Rizzo's not that old. the only guy that's relatively old to me is John Lackey and David Ross, and David Ross is retiring. I don't know about John Lackey yet, but if you look at that team, they have a lot of young talent. And, you know, you have to wonder to yourself, you think about this, the Cubs let go of Starlin Castro at the beginning of the year, and now they have Javier Baez. Honestly, I feel like both teams won out in this trade because Starlin Castro did relatively well for the Yankees in his first year, and Javier Baez, especially in the National League Championship Series, he played great. He made some great defensive stops, and he also got a couple of big hits, including a big home run in the LCS, and just making plays. But I just want to say, if Ben Zobrist, who, like I said, World Series MVP, if he did not come up with that big hit in Game 7 and the Cubs still won the World Series, I think Chris Bryant would have won it because if you look at how Chris Bryant played in the last 2-3 games and he got a couple home runs, he started to make that case and he started to really blossom. You know, obviously a lot of people want, I remember last year when he didn't originally get called up, everybody was like, hashtag free Chris Bryant. And I was saying, you know, who is this kid? I didn't know about him. And then the first time I really heard about him was when he hit the big scoreboard out in Wrigley Field with a long, long bomb to left field. And I believe in Game 6 he hit a long bomb. And not only was it a shot, it was a huge home run. And, you know, sometimes for teams, all it takes is one big hit, one big inning to get your whole team going. And I think that I'm still going back to when the Cubs scored 3 runs in the top of the 6th, that's when I knew they were going to win the World Series because I knew at that point they got all the momentum. They're going to go into Game 7 with a lot of momentum, and I think they're going to win it. And the decision, and the one thing that was a head scratcher that Game 6 was when Aroldis Chapman comes in the 8th inning, I believe, and they're up by 5 runs. And everybody's sitting there like, why do you put him in when you're up by 5 runs? But, you know, then you go to Game 7, you have John Lester come in, and again, it's like, he only pitched a few days ago. Why do you put him in? And he comes up and he gives up a few runs. Obviously, they don't give up the lead, but still, it was like, why did you do that? Then he put Aroldis Chapman in, and to me, what should have been the red flag for Joe Madden was that he started missing a lot of pitches. And I'm not talking about, like, just missed or just on the outside corner. I'm talking about he missed it wide, like out here. It was crazy. And that's what, to me, should have happened. And if you look at the home run by Rajai Davis, that pitch was kind of low, and it wasn't where Chapman probably wanted it. And he looked like he was a little bit frustrated and a little bit phased out by what was going on. And that's why I think Rajai Davis patiently was standing at the plate, getting ready to get a big hit, and he certainly did. But all in all, I just want to say, and I also want to say, I watched some of the parade yesterday, and over 5 million people showed up to watch to come to the parade. That's incredible. I could see people on top of buildings, in the buildings waving at the players. I saw guys hanging up on, street lights. I thought it was great. And I got to give, like I said, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and all the credit to Chicago Cubs. Dexter Fowler in the post game when Bill Murray was interviewing people, and he asked Dexter Fowler, do you have anything to say to anybody back home? He said, Chicago Cubs fans, we did it. We won the World Series. And then he said, for all the people who didn't think we could do this and didn't think we could win it, guess what? We did it. And I'm one of those people, as you guys know. I'm one of those people that didn't think the Cubs were going to win the World Series. I was one of the people that didn't want to see the Cubs win the World Series, but they did. And so I just want to give a big shout out to the entire Chicago Cubs organization, from Joe Madden to the players, to Theo Epstein, to the owners, to everybody who's involved. Congratulations on finally breaking the curse of the Billy Goat and the 108 years of pain and suffering. But there's one last thing about this I want to talk about, and I'll make this relatively quick. There is one person out there that I want to send a personal shout out to, and that is, it's to the Chicago Cubs fans. And I want, if any Cubs fans watch this, I want you to do me a huge favor. Can we please forgive Steve Bartman? The Cubs are World Series champions. It's time to let this go. Let this man have his peace. Apologize to him. Welcome him back to the Cubs. And please, let's just forget it, because he doesn't deserve to live the rest of his life with this type of pain. Please forgive him, and let's move on. All right, we're going to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little about the NFL. We got a couple exciting games coming up this week, including Eagles versus Giants. That should be a big one. So we'll see you when you get back here. This is the NVP Show.
Today's show has been sponsored by Farmers Insurance in Voorhees, New Jersey. To protect your assets and the people you love, call Mike Skoranek, your local Farmers Insurance agent, at 856-336-2553.
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
High-achieving students. Internationally renowned faculty. And award-winning alumni. A 226-year history of excellence and a beautiful urban campus. The University of Pittsburgh.
Graduates of our university end up going places. Same goes for our students. Because while our campus may be a launch pad for bigger and better things, it's also a prime destination filled with sights, sounds, and some pretty good eats. So, while you're preparing to take on the world is right outside your door. Wayne State University. Aim higher.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to make a really great sub, this is what we do. It's what we've been doing. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll always do. So what are you doing? Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
Today's show has been sponsored by Farmers Insurance in Voorhees, New Jersey. To protect your assets and the people you love, call Mike Skoranek, your local Farmers Insurance agent, at 856-336-2553.
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
All right, welcome back here to the MVP Show. So let's keep the ball rolling here. Let's keep. I want to keep you guys informed with all the different sports that are going on today. And let's talk about the NFL now. So we got a couple games that are coming up this week, and one of the ones I definitely want to talk about is obviously the Eagles versus the Giants. That is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 o'clock at MetLife Stadium. Obviously, it's the first meeting between the Eagles and Giants. The Giants are coming off their bye week. 2 weeks ago, they beat the Los Angeles Rams in London, and the Eagles are coming off their tough loss on Sunday Night Football last week to the Dallas Cowboys. If you guys were watching the Philly Sports Guys when they were doing their big special, and I was there as a guest, obviously we were talking about the Eagles game, and it was a pretty good game, and I think it came out exactly the way I thought it would. I thought that Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz both came out and played very well. I definitely thought Carson Wentz was going to come out on top, but I got to give Dak Prescott a lot of credit. And that offensive line, by the way, of the Dallas Cowboys is phenomenal. They give Prescott so much time in the pocket, and and they make that running game look tremendous. So that's why I think they're a big favorite in the NFC right now. I think they're a huge favorite to do some damage in the postseason. But anyway, let's not talk about the Cowboys right now. We're not going there. Obviously, we got Eagles and Giants fans listening. I don't want to upset them. I'm a Giants fan. I don't want to get myself all worked up. But let's talk a little about the game, obviously, so you guys can talk. The most interesting matchup I would say that I want to look for is the Giants defense versus Carson Wentz. The Giants defense obviously hasn't had that big game yet. They've had that big defensive game. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, both Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and Landon Collins both got themselves 2 interceptions, and they definitely made some big plays on defense finally. And so I want to see them continue to improve. Obviously, the Giants spent so much money this offseason trying to improve their defense, and we're still trying to wait for a little bit more better result, but we're getting there. But I want to see how they do. The Giants need to start improving their pass rush, because if you give Carson Wentz too much time, he is going to destroy you. He's going to find a way to either scramble out of pocket and make plays, or he's going to, obviously get some time to throw the ball. Unless Carson Wentz, and if we can pressure Carson Wentz, it's not we, but if the Giants can pressure Carson Wentz, then then they can totally have a good game. But here's the thing that I've really been impressed by Carson Wentz. He seems to have matured so quickly to the NFL game. He seems to have shifted from playing college ball and understanding what that's like to go into the pros. And I've said this before, I really think that Carson Wentz is definitely the future of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that was one of the biggest moves the Eagles have made, to trade up to get to number 2 in order to draft him. So my hat's off to the Philadelphia Eagles organization for doing that. Another thing I want to talk about is looking at, obviously, how are the Giants going to do coming off a bye week? They've had about 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Obviously, it's kind of nice to have your bye week right directly in the middle of this, right at the halfway point of the regular season. And so what I'm saying is that, how are they going to do? We don't know yet. Obviously, it's going to be interesting. I think, in my opinion, personally, the Giants are going to get off to a slow start. They usually do, and I think also because they're a little rusty because they haven't played in 2 weeks, it's going to take a little bit of time to get back into playing against another team, getting back in that mode, and getting themselves acquainted with everything. I still think the Giants are going to have some success. They need to open up the offense more. I've been saying this. I got my friend Steve here watching me today, and we always talk about the fact that the Giants need to open up their offense, especially with the passing game. And it's crazy. I mean, am I right? I mean, yeah. It's just we always talk we always talk about the fact that they have these 3 tremendously talented receivers: Odell Beckham, Victor Cruz, and Sterling Shepard, who has become a pleasant surprise, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Definitely a pleasant surprise. They need to open it up. They need to get the ball to all 3 of them. They shouldn't try to focus on trying to just get it to Odell or trying to just get it to Victor Cruz. They need to spread it out and get the ball a little bit more to Sterling Shepard, because he can make plays. What they really should be trying to do is what they did against the Dallas Cowboys. If you remember, in the Cowboys game, you saw that Eli was trying to get the ball to all 3 of them, and it seemed to have success. I mean, they seem to have more success when they do that, am I right?
They look great.
The biggest problem with the Giants, I was just talking to Aaron from the Philly sports guys about this off camera. He was saying it, and I totally agree with him. The Giants can't run the ball. They cannot run the ball. I'm sorry. It's just their offensive line is atrocious. And I heard that they were trying to get Joe Thomas from the Browns, but the asking price was just too much. I understand that. I understand you don't want to put so much into one offensive lineman. The Giants need to do kind of what the Cowboys have been doing: draft some offensive linemen and develop them. And I was just talking to my friend Steve over here off camera about he wants to see how Eric Flowers does. Am I correct?
That's right.
He wants to see how he's doing. He's become a frustrating factor for me and a few other people that I know. He's been making so many mistakes, costing him a lot of penalties. It's frustrating. It's aggravating. You want him to do well, and you want this offensive line to get better, and sometimes it's frustrating. It's just frustrating. But look, it's going to be about that. And like I said, the biggest thing for the Giants going into this game is that they need to find a way to spread the ball out to Odell, Cruz, Sterling Shepard, even get the ball to Larry Donnell or dump it off to Rashad Jennings. Kind of keep this offense going. And this so-called no-huddle offense is about the slowest no-huddle offense I've ever watched. This is really not that fast. If they wanted to go fast and up-tempo, they need to pick it up. I know Eli does not, he's not that fast running, but he needs to kind of pick up the offense and get it going. And the Giants have yet to score 30-plus points in a game all season. This might be a good time to start doing that, because they really need to get the offense going, because if they want to make a push to get to the playoffs and possibly even make the Super Bowl this year, dare I say, they really need to open up this offense. And it's frustrating because Ben McAdoo, this is why I don't think Ben McAdoo, in my opinion, is that great of a head coach. I feel like he's more of just an offensive guy. And now that he has to focus on everybody, he can't focus specifically on the Giants' offense. And that's what's frustrating for Giants fans like myself and Steve over here. That's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for Eli and this offense to have a big day where they really were just clicking on offense. Maybe it could happen this week, maybe it won't. I personally think, like I said, that the Giants are going to get off to a slow start. But we'll have to wait and see. The biggest thing I want to say that the Eagles got to do is that they have the offensive line, and that, just offensive line in general has to keep Carson Wentz clean. They have to keep him comfortable. Because once I feel that Carson Wentz gets into a groove and he starts getting a couple passes in, if his receivers are not dropping it because they clearly have dropped a lot of passes a lot, they'll be fine. And Carson Wentz will get into a groove. He'll get ready. Obviously, he looked like he was frustrating. And I heard some rumor that he had some argument with a few teammates after the game in Dallas. I can't say that's true or not. I heard that was just a rumor. I would have to talk to the Philly sports guys about that. They probably know it more than I do. I personally don't know anything about it. But, like I said, if Carson Wentz gets to a groove, it's going to be a long day, Steve. It's going to be a long day for the G-Men. And so, he's nodding his head because he's totally agreeing with me right now. He totally understands what I'm talking about here. And it's just, it's kind of, that's all the Giants need to do. So I'm going to give my prediction, and I think the Giants are going to come out on top. Yes, I'm going with the Giants in this one. I think they're going to win this one 23-21. I think it'll be close for the most of the game. And I think the Giants defense is going to continue to improve and get better. Obviously, I still think that Carson Wentz is going to be able to find the end zone. And I think Eli, in a way, is going to make a few big plays, maybe to Odell, maybe to Cruz, maybe to, Orleans Darkwa for all I know. And just get the ball rolling. So I think, and, my friend Steve loves Orleans Darkwa, so he's hoping.
Hashtag free Darkwa.
Right, exactly. Hashtag free Darkwa. But yeah, that's what we're hoping for. So that is my opinion on this game, and I'm sticking to it. So, and this is going to be fun to talk about. I really like talking. I always love talking. And if you guys have watched my show, you know I love talking about this. How about we talk about the New York Jets for a few minutes, shall we? I think I still have a few minutes to go before we go to break. Let's talk about the Jets. So they were down a couple scores against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday last week. And I was talking to somebody, I said, the Jets of all teams, they would be the one team to give the Browns their first win of the year. And they were on the verge of doing that. But in the second half, they finally woke up and were able to come back and beat the Browns and keep them winless. That game so much showed me what is totally wrong with the Jets. And I've said this several times, and it's still pissing me off. And you would think I'm a Jets fan, but I'm not. It's just that I hear so much about the Jets on the radio, on TV, I read in the newspaper every morning. Here is what's really bugging me, really grinding my gears, let's say. Todd Bowles has zero emotion. He doesn't show any emotion to whether they win, whether they lose, whether they score a touchdown, whether they give up a touchdown. It's the same thing. It's always this. Every game. It's like it's like the Manning face at times. I mean, really, it's like ridiculous. And Steve is laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so, what I'm saying is that he needs to have more emotion. He needs to realize that he's coaching the New York Jets, a team that, you know what the Jets stands for? And I said this on a radio show 2 days ago. This is what the Jets stands for. Just enough to succumb. That is it. That is perfect for Jets fans. And they can get as mad at me as they want. But I know for a fact that deep down inside, they totally agree with me. And I'm serious. The Jets do things that make me want to rip my hair out. And it's crazy how you would think I'm not a Jets fan from my reaction and my emotion about this. But they're talked about so much, it's just mind-boggling. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is a genius for one reason only. He was able to get $14 million for 1 year from the Jets, and he's having such a mediocre season. And so Geno Smith gets hurt 2 weeks ago against the Ravens. I thought maybe the Jets would bypass Ryan Fitzpatrick and try, let's put in, maybe Bryce Petty, like I've been saying for the last, 2 months. Or even Christian Hackenberg. I mean, Steve and I watched Christian Hackenberg play against the Giants in the preseason. We both thought he was good. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous. And so you have these young guys. Let them play and let's see what happens. Nope. The Jets never do anything that makes sense. And I'm sorry. I'm so mean to Jets fans and their team. But this is just my reality. This is the reality of the whole situation. It is annoying. It never ends for me. Until the day I die, I will always get mad at the Jets making the dumbest of decisions. I thought maybe the Jets were on the rise when in 09 and 2010 they went to back-to-back AFC title games. But the truth is that they had the emotion, but Rex Ryan was not a head coach and he didn't know how to coach that team. Todd Bowles has no emotion and he also doesn't know how to coach this team. The Jets need to find a guy who understands the history of this team and what they have gone through in the last several decades since they last won the Super Bowl. I personally believe that Joe Namath, and this is going to sound really funny, but this is a funny theory that I've heard, but I think that Joe Namath, before Super Bowl III, when they beat the Baltimore Colts and were, I believe it was 17-point favorites, he signed a deal with the devil to say, let me win this Super Bowl and the Jets don't have to win any others for the rest of my life. I mean, that's what I think, because if you look at the history of this team and look at how many times they've had an opportunity to have greatness, to do well, they just enough to succumb. I mean, that's really the New York Jets in a nutshell. Just enough to succumb. That is it. And it's ridiculous. It is absolutely mind-bogglingly ridiculous. And so you look at it, we're into week 9 of the NFL season. And I already know for a fact the Jets are not making the playoffs. Not even close. They're probably finishing dead last, in my opinion. They're going up against the Miami Dolphins this week. I was talking to somebody who was a Jets fan. They said, oh, the Jets will blow out the Dolphins. To be honest, I don't know if they'll ever win another game again the way they play. I feel like they're lucky to have 3 wins. They beat the Cleveland Browns, and everybody's like praising them because they came back. It's the Cleveland Browns. I'm sorry if I'm disrespecting any Cleveland Brown fans out there, but the truth of the matter is that they're the only team without a win, and the Jets looked like absolute garbage in the first half. And they still kept Fitzpatrick in there. I mean, what does it take? Does he have to give up 56 points in the first quarter to get taken out? What? I mean, I know you were forced to give him $14 million. But here's the thing. You have a second-year guy and a rookie quarterback behind both Geno Smith, who's totally inconsistent, and you have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's vastly overrated. I mean, vastly overrated. The only thing he's ever done, the only positive thing you say about Fitzpatrick is the fact that he had one good season with the Jets. That was last year. They didn't even make the playoffs that year. All right. We're going to take a commercial break because I need to calm down. Because once again, I just ranted about the Jets for 10 minutes. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the NBA, and then we'll finish off the show with my weekly college football preview. A couple exciting games this week. Should be fun to look at. So we'll see when we get back here on the NVP Show. It's like really behind.
You went off on the
High-achieving students. Internationally renowned faculty. And award-winning alumni. A 226-year history of excellence and a beautiful urban campus. The University of Pittsburgh.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to make a really great sub, this is what we do. It's what we've been doing. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll always do. So what are you doing? Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
Graduates of our university end up going places. Same goes for our students. Because while our campus may be a launch pad for bigger and better things, it's also a prime destination filled with sights, sounds, and some pretty good eats. So, while you're preparing to take on the world is right outside your door. Wayne State University. Aim higher.
Welcome back here to the NVP Show. I apologize for my rants once again about the Jets. If you guys have been watching, when I talk about the Jets, I get a little mad. I get a little frustrated. It's a little annoying, but no, I'm calm now. I had some water. Everything's fine. Let's just keep let's keep going here. Let's talk about the NBA. Obviously, now we're fully into the NBA season. Everybody who's a fan of every team, they're getting ready. They're watching now. We're underway. NBA season's going. We've already had a few pretty good games, if you ask me. I personally believe that we've had a few good games, and the game that there are two games I want to talk about that I've watched. Well, I haven't really watched, but I've seen the highlights of, and that is. First of all, let's talk about the Golden State Warriors, shall we? I mean, I can't really talk about the NBA without talking about the Warriors. I mean, unless I don't know. Just you have to talk about them because they're there, and they have Kevin Durant and all those people, and it's just anyway. But anyway, so just on Thursday they played the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was Durant's first game against his former team. Russell Westbrook was a determined man that night. He played really well. The Thunder scored 32 points in the first quarter. And what was interesting is that every time Westbrook came out, the Thunder started struggling. And every time he got back in, they started rolling again. That's going to be the problem, obviously, that Kevin Durant's not there anymore. But, no, the Warriors beat the Thunder 122-96. So it was almost blew out by 20 points. So you get a lot of credit. But there was something that I was watching that pissed me off. And that was I saw Kevin Durant cursing at his own teammates. I thought it was a joke that he didn't even have the audacity to even say hi to anybody who was on that team at that point. And that's just ridiculous. Why all of a sudden has he decided to become a jerk? And that's not cool. What did the Thunder ever do to you? I mean, really. Obviously, they didn't win an NBA championship. They got to the finals one year. And so he just leaves them, and he's just like, nope, you all are garbage to me. I don't want to talk to you guys. Screw you, beep, 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 blankety, blank, blank, whatever you want to censor for cursing or whatever. But I think it's just ridiculous. And that's why I'm pulling a lot more for Russell Westbrook. I would love nothing more than to see Westbrook beat the Thunder at least, beat the Warriors at least once. Because there's obviously times where people like to see a villain. And I think Kevin Durant has definitely become the villain of the NBA. If the Warriors weren't hated a lot in the NBA before Kevin Durant, they were really hated when he signed with them. I know this for a fact. I mean, my friend Steve here, he's a big Knicks fan. He probably agrees with that. Wouldn't you say definitely the Warriors are not a likable team in the NBA now? Right. Definitely. And Kevin Durant, that pushed me over the cliff. I mean, I was like, how dare you curse at your own team? A team that you started with, obviously in Seattle, and then moved to OKC, but those guys didn't do anything to you. They didn't call you a jerk. They didn't say anything like that. They understood why you did, and they moved on. So why are you trying to show them up? I was listening to Russell Westbrook's post-game conference after their loss, and he said, the Warriors talk a lot of trash. I guess that's what they do now. And you know what? I think, it's obviously because they just think that they're the best team out there. Let's hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Just last night, the Warriors went into Los Angeles and played, I don't know if you want to call them the lonely Los Angeles Lakers. I think they're pretty good. And they showed it last night. The Lakers beat the Warriors, handing them their second loss of the season by the final score of 117-97. And Steph Curry finished shooting 0 for 10 from downtown. And so that breaks his 157-game streak of at least one three-pointer made. What did I see from that game? A team that was vastly, over, just did not. The Warriors probably didn't even think the Lakers could run with them. But not only could they run with them, they played their butts off. I believe his last name is Lance Jr. Did you see that dunk he made last night? He posterized. He put his hand on one of the Warriors' heads and dunked it. I mean, that was pretty impressive. And Luke Walton, who just, remember last year, he was the assistant coach to Steve Kerr for the Warriors, and then he was the head coach when Steve Kerr was out, and he could have easily been coach of the year if the NBA, like jerks. They look, oh, like, why are you doing that? Just go down and take the easy two and keep it going. That's going to be the demise of the Warriors. If they're not making their threes, they're not winning games. That's why I think they lost Game 7 of the finals last year to the Cavaliers. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Andre Iguodala, they were not hitting their threes, especially Steph Curry. They looked like garbage, and that's why I think they lost. I think they were lucky to have that game be close because the Cavs knew that they could get the ball down inside. The Warriors should be doing this more often. They have Kevin Durant, who I think is perfect for getting the ball and letting him drive the lane and make plays, dunk it. You have Draymond Green, who can shoot the three, but he's a big man. Get the ball inside to him. Make some plays. Do some pick and rolls. The three-pointer is not the only type of way you could score some points. This isn't a three-point shooting contest. This is a, let's try to win the game. All you have to do is score more points than the other team. You don't have to just shoot threes. I understand that you make most of your threes, but at the same time, it's ridiculous how many times they shoot it and how many times they miss and they look like garbage. But yeah, I just want to say hats off to the Lakers, man. They did a tremendous job last night shutting down the Warriors. I don't remember the last time the Warriors finished a game scoring less than 100 points. I mean, do you? I was a little surprised. It wasn't close, I don't think, for most of the game. I don't think it was. I think the Lakers had it going throughout the whole game. But yeah, no, that's just my little rant about the Warriors. Kind of like the Jets, but not too much. Let's move on to the other big game that was earlier on Friday, and that was the Knicks. The New York Knicks took on the Chicago Bulls, but that wasn't the big story. The big story was Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah making their return to Chicago. A lot of people wondering how the fans would react. I don't see a lot of disrespect, honestly. I saw a lot of love. Do you agree with that, Steve? I don't think there was a lot of booing. I mean, you think so? I didn't watch a lot of the game. I saw the highlights. I saw one play that Derrick Rose made where he got past Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler, and a few other guys, and made a, I guess you would say reverse, almost no-look layup off the glass. And I was like, that's classic Derrick Rose right there. And he looked pretty good. He shot 7 of 11 from the field for 15 points. Not a great stat line, but it was good enough to get the win. But Kristaps Porzingis and Melo combined, they scored combined 52 points and really lit it up. And I've really noticed something this year. Carmelo looks a lot better. He looks like after the Olympics, he looks like he seems to really be taking on more of a leadership role. I think you would agree with that, Steve, right? Do you feel like I think he finally sees the big potential of this team. I remember way back, well, not way back, but back last year when Kristaps Porzingis was drafted, everybody was saying, no, you need to find people that are going to, why would Carmelo want to stay here if they're not trying to build around them and trying to win games? I think that Porzingis is the perfect fit for the Knicks and this offense. And I love everything about this kid. I love that he can step back and shoot the three. He could go over and pretty much dunk on anybody because he's 7'4", 7'3". He's 7'3". It's still huge, and he can still dunk the ball over everybody. But no, the Knicks look good. They looked consistent last night. That was one of the better games they've played so far in the early season. They seem to be finally playing as a team, and the Jeff Hornacek really seems to be understanding how this whole thing goes. And so that was a great job. And also, I was talking to Steve on the way here. I just want to say that Dwayne Wade, like you said, he looks a lot better this year. He shot 12 for 20 for 35 points. I think he finally is relaxed. He's pretty much won everything he can as a player, and now he gets to kind of almost finish his career in a way in his hometown. So we're going to take our last commercial break, but when we come back, it's time for my weekly college football playoffs. And at the end, I want to give a special shout out to a few sports teams that maybe you guys don't know about. So we'll see when you get back here on the NVP Show.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to make a really great sub, this is what we do. It's what we've been doing. It's what we've always done. It's what we'll always do. So what are you doing? Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
High-achieving students, internationally renowned faculty, and award-winning alumni. A 226-year history of excellence and a beautiful urban campus. The University of Pittsburgh.
Solano Community College transformed my life.
And gave me the opportunities I needed to succeed.
I received the same university caliber education
Without the pressures of debt holding me back. Affordable and flexible, I fulfilled my undergraduate classes.
getting to the information I truly have a passion for,
The decision to attend SCC empowered my future.
and made my dream of attending Yale University a reality. Solano Community College, the educated choice.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmers Insurance in Voorhees, New Jersey. To protect your assets and the people you love, call Mike Skoranek, your local Farmers Insurance agent, at 856-336-2553.
We are farmers. Bum ba dum bum 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 bum.
And that is my weekly college football preview. Obviously, I think that's probably the number one thing you guys come to see, and I'm sure that you guys want to know what's going to happen in the college football world today. So let's get right to it, as I always do. I want to talk about one game that happened last night that was pretty good. Temple versus UConn. Temple won 21-0. And the reason I like bringing this up is because I always like talking about, in a way, I like talking about guys that are from this area, from the state of New Jersey. Philip Walker, who's the quarterback of Temple, is from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And he played pretty well last night. He went 12 of 18 for 215 yards, 3 touchdowns. He threw 2 interceptions. Didn't really seem to bug him, though, as Temple came away with the 21-0 victory. There's also a guy, and I've actually had a chance, I've played against him, and when I used to play, and I also have met him a few times. He used to play quarterback for a school that was pretty much about 5 minutes from my house. Eddie Hahn, quarterback wide receiver at UConn. Obviously, I believe he's the backup or third string right now. He's a freshman. And I want to say a quick shout out to him, and hopefully he's doing well, and hopefully that he gets some success and helps UConn build a really good program there. So shout out to him. And shout out to Philip Walker also, Jersey native, lighting it up. I always like to see Jersey guys do their thing. That's why I like watching Rutgers, man. You got a lot of Jersey guys on that team making plays for their home state. So shout out to all the Jersey guys out there. All right, but after that, let's get to some previews. We got a couple of good games this week. Let's talk about, and this is a request by my friend Steve over here, because he's a big fan of this team. Let's talk about Navy versus Notre Dame, shall we? All right. So we have the option offense. As we all know, Navy's been running it ever since their inception, since they started playing football. And they're taking on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who have had a disappointing season. Let's put it that way. A very disappointing season. I say in this game, what to look for is expect a lot of yards, especially on the ground, because obviously, you're going to see a lot of running by Navy's offense. And I think you're also going to see that from Notre Dame as well. I think that they're going to try to take some pressure off Deshaun Kaiser. And I think Notre Dame's going to try to run the ball a little bit more, kind of balance it out, and try to get the ball rolling, because at this point in the year, they got to get something going if they want to at least make a bowl game. And Deshaun Kaiser knows he doesn't want to enter the NFL draft on a low note, because that will really hurt his draft stock. I mean, that's going to be very tough for him. But, Deshaun Kaiser's coming in, and he needs to get off to a fast start. For him, when he's got to throw the ball, he needs to get off to a fast start. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be a long day for the Irish. And that's what I've noticed in a lot of games they've lost. If he doesn't get off to a good start, this whole team doesn't get off to a good start. And the whole thing goes down. And it's very frustrating for them. But yeah, no, like I said, expect a lot of running. And I just want to say this game today is 11:30, so it's coming up very soon, because, and this game actually is in Jacksonville, Florida, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah, Jacksonville, Florida. For I don't know what reason. Is there a particular reason for that, or? No idea. No. I don't really know why they're playing in Jacksonville, but it's Notre Dame, so I guess they get that kind of luxury. But I'm gonna go with let's go to my prediction. And I know Steve's not gonna want to hear this, but I'm gonna go with Navy winning this one 21-17. And the reason I say this is because Notre Dame's run defense is atrocious. And I don't know if you agree with that. I mean, he's watched a lot more Notre Dame than I have, but it's just if they don't stop the run, which is basically what Navy does, it's going to be a very long day for the Irish team that has been below mediocre, in my opinion, this year. A very big disappointment to where they were ranked at the beginning of the season. Let's go to my next game, and this is kind of interesting. Air Force versus Army. They're two relatively big rivals. I mean, military academies. I always like watching these games. That's why I love watching the Army-Navy game every year. Because both these teams have the same type of offense, same type of players in a way. And so I feel like, both these teams are it's going to be low scoring, but I still think that they're going to have a lot of fun. But what's interesting about the Air Force Falcons is that they've been throwing the ball a lot more this year. And their Air Force quarterback Nate Romine has had a tremendous season, throwing for 1,206 yards and 10 touchdown passes and just one interception. He's really been lighting up to help the Air Force Falcons get the ball rolling, get the ball going in the air, and moving the chains and score a lot more points than they usually do in the last couple of years. But I would say in this game, especially because Army is doing this too, they're seeming to throw the ball a little bit more. I think you're starting to notice that from all the military academies. I think you're starting to notice they're trying to throw the ball a little bit more, trying to score some points and win some games. But I think you should expect a lot more passing in this one, and I think it should be a pretty relatively interesting game to watch today. That game is at noon on the CBS Sports Network, so if you have that, if you're an Army or Air Force alum, again, thank you for your service, as I always like to just give a shout out to. But like I said, just, it's going to be a good game. And my prediction, I'm going to have 28-19 Air Force. I think that it should be, I think the defense in the end for Air Force is going to be able to find a way to make some plays and win this game for the Falcons. Let's talk about the next game. The next game I want to talk about is, and this is pretty interesting, and this is another team that my friend Steve likes. University of Pitt versus Miami today. Big ACC matchup. That's at 12:30 Eastern, and I'm not sure what TV channel it is. I would have to look. They didn't list it when I first listened